Magandang gabi po mga katipon sa Pilipinas. Ito po ang Ating Katipunan, muling sumasa inyo mga tagapakinig upang magbigay ng mahalagang impormasyon, magbigay liwanag at higit sa lahat ay makinig sa inyong mga daing at kuro-kuro hinggil sa mga problemang patuloy na nagpapahirap sa ating kalagayan at kabuhayan. Sa susunod na 2 oras, sisikapin po namin ipaliwanag ang iba-ibang bahagi ng ating ekonomiya at ang mga mabibigat pang local and international issues na may malaking epekto sa ating buhay at kinabukasan. Ito po ang inyong katipon na si Butch Valdes. Kasama po natin maya-maya si Itos Valdes na ang aking co-host dito sa ang Ating Katipunan at kasama din po natin si Archibido. Kami po sa mga katipon sa Save the Nation Movement, Philippine LaRouche Society at Partido Politikal ng Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino. Narito po kami na nag-aanyaya sa inyo na makibahagi sa ating talakayan sa pagsusuri ng mga kasalukuyang problema at paghahanap ng kaukulang solusyon. Magandang gabi po ulit. Andito na naman tayo at minarapat natin na mag-live ulit ngayong gabi dahil bukas ay napaka-importanting araw para sa buong bansa natin dahil tomorrow will be the speech of our brand new President, Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Ang unang-unang talumpati na hinggil sa kalagayan ng ating bansa. A State of the Nation Address. Makikita po natin sa kanyang talumpati ang kanyang pag-uunawa kung ano ang kalagayan ng ating bansa. A state of the nation, which means not just only our republic, but the people living in that republic, which is us. The nation means the republic and the people and the citizenry of that republic. What are the conditions now of the present state of the Republic of the Philippines? Yan po ang ating inaantabayanan sa kanyang talumpati. Marahil hindi po kakailan ng ating mga tagapakinig na ang malamang na dideklarahan ni Presidente Bongbong Marcos ay yung seryosong krisis na hinaharap natin hinggil sa ating ekonomiya. Pag sinabi natin krisis hinggil sa ating ekonomiya, ang dapat itukoy natin dito, dapat inaasahan kung tutukuyin dito, hindi po yung mga GDP percentage o yung mga statistikang inflation rate o yung mga iba pang statistikang ginagamit ng mga ekonomista ng gobyerno sa kanilang pagpapaliwanag ng sitwasyon ng ating ekonomiya. Ang tunay na kalagayan ng ating ekonomiya ay makikita po sa kalagayan ng ating mga mamamayan. Sila po ba ay nakakakain ng 3 beses isang araw? Kung hindi po, sila po ba ay nakakakain ng 2 beses isang araw? O ilan sa kanila ang kumakain ng 1 beses isang araw? At what levels of hunger are our people experiencing? Kasi hunger, hindi lang gutom. No? Ang hunger, papunta po yan sa starvation. Kung malubha ang kanilang problema sa pagkain, no? Dahil wala nga silang pambili, wala silang trabaho, at nahihirapan sila sa pagkamahal ng bilihin, no? Binabawasan at binabawasan sigurado ang kanilang makakain. At pag binawasan po natin ang kanilang makakain, ang kalagayan po ng mga mamayang Pilipino ay pabagsak ng pabagsak. Ito pong darating ng mga buwan na nakikita po natin, hindi lang dahil dito sa sinasabi nilang krisis ng kalusugan, krisis ng ekonomiya, pati na itong gera ng Russia at Ukraine, dinadagdag pa ng ating mga ekonomista para madagdagan ang mga kanilang mga excuses to show why they are not too effective in generating jobs and income and production of food for our people. No? Ahanap at ahanap sila ng mga dahilan. Sa ating pong palagay, mayroong kakayanan tayo at meron tayong mga solusyon dyan. Pero ang kinakailangan po sa ating liderato ay magkaroon ng kanyang sariling pag-uunawa, sarili niyang pag-uunawa at sarili niyang vision in order to bring the country not just into a recovery position, but more towards development. Ang nakakalungkot po, so far, siyempre hindi tayo pwedeng masyadong maging kritiko sa mga appointments na ginagawa ng ating Pangulo sa kanyang kabinete. Ngunit makikita po natin at siguro naman sasang-ayon kayo sa aking konklusyon na ang appointment ng mga kabinete, miyembro ng kabinete, ay magbibigay sa atin ng spekulasyon kung saan patungo ang ating Pangulo sa kanyang determinasyon na lulutasin niya at maiibsan niya ang napakahirap na kalagayan ng mga mamayang Pilipino. Kung ang ekonomiya ang isa sa pinakamalubhang problema, ang tanong ko, bakit hindi nag-iiba ang economic managers niya? Bakit hindi nag-iiba ang finance and NEDA or economic people na mamamahala ng pagpapalit ng sistema ng ating ekonomiya? Hindi po natin, kung haharap po tayo dito sa isang napakabigat na krisis na hinaharap ng ating bansa, na kahit kailan sa ating kasaysayan ay hindi pa tayo nakaranas ng ganitong kalubhang krisis. Kasi po parang mayroong convergence of storms. Parang sabay-sabay tayong tinatamaan ng mga bagyo ngayon sa ngayon panahon na ito. Kung ganyan ang nangyayari, tapos ang kukunin natin na economic managers, ang gagamit ng kanilang sistemang paglulutas, their own system of addressing the crisis, which is a system which they applied before for several times before and did not work. Now, we are expecting them to do exactly the same thing and they're expecting a new and more beneficial result. Hindi ba nga si mismong Albert Einstein, yung henyo, nung dinescribe niya what stupidity is, he said, stupidity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result each time. Hindi po natin pwedeng gawin yan kasi ito pong economic managers natin ay hindi magbabago ang kanilang sistema. At itong kanilang sistema ay hindi akma sa bagong-bagong klaseng krisis na inaharap po natin. Yan po ang sa aking tingin. Of course, I can be mistaken. And maybe I'm expecting too much from the president, or maybe the president has something else in mind. But I can only make that comment because for the past 40 years, the same economic managers have taken the same positions, naglirigodon lang sila dito sa larangan ng ating ekonomiya ng buong 40 taon. Alam po natin na ang nangyari po sa atin itong 40 taon, bagamat ang binabandera nila matataas na GDP ratings at mababang inflation rate, hindi po nila ipapagmayabang na ang kalidad ng kabuhayan ng mga mamamayang Pilipino ay patuloy at patuloy na bumabagsak. Padami ng padami ang mga naghihirap. Padami ng padami ang mga walang makain. Padami ng padami ang walang trabaho. Pataas ng pataas ang halaga ng mga bilihin. Yan po ang nangyayari sa atin. Yang mga pinapagyabang nilang 6.57% growth rate bakit po hindi natin nakikita sa buhay ng mga mamamayang Pilipino? Kasi yan 6.57% growth rate. Ang kumikita lang dyan ay mga kapuranggot na Pilipino, ang tinatawag natin mga oligarko. At itong mga oligarkong to, sila ang kapartner ng mga ibang mga opisyal sa gobyerno upang gatasan ang mga mamayang Pilipino. Ang unang-una nilang ginagawa ay ang paghawak sa kuryente, sa tubig at sa telecommunication. Ito po ay supposedly binigay sa pribado sektor. Pero ilan ba yung pribado sektor na yan na itinutukoy nila? They're talking about a handful of so-called private sector. And this handful of private sector companies and families are now in almost total control of the whole economy of the Philippines. Because those people have their own surrogates, kanilang mga empleyado na nasa gobyerno. Mga surrogates nila, yung mga empleyado ng mga oligarko ay nasa gobyerno ngayon, nasa napakataas na posisyon sa gobyerno, umaabot sila sa miyembro ng kabinete. Nandyan sa Department of Finance, nandyan sa Department of Energy, nandyan sa NEDA, nandyan sa Department of ano pa ba yung iba? Energy, local government. Pero more, itong energy and public utilities that are being handled by the surrogates of the oligarchy. Ano po ang mga aasahan natin pag ganitong nangyari? Napaka-bigat po kung iisipin ninyo. Kasi siguradong gagawin itong mga ito, papatawan na naman tayo ng buwis. Papabayan nilang tumaas ng tumaas ang mga halaga ng bilihin. At yung mga hindi pinatay ng COVID ay papatayin sa gutom para lumiit ang ating populasyon dahil sa kanilang pag-iisip ang mas maliit na populasyon ang lutas ng ating economic problems. So gagawa sila ng programa na magpapabawas pa rin ng populasyon. Hindi ba natin nahahalatayan? Hanggang ngayon ba pikit mata tayong iniiwasan ang katotohanan? Ako po isa sa mga nagdarasal na ang ating Pangulo makikita niya ang conflict of interest ng populasyon ng Pilipinas, ang mga pamilyang Pilipino. Ang interest nila ay taliwas sa interest ng mga oligarko. yung mga oligarko na may hawak ng public utilities, kinakailangan bigyan ng pansin ng ating Pangulo at gumawa ng mga hakbang para matigil ang kanilang pagsasakal sa mga mamamayang Pilipino, para matigil ang pagsasakal ng mga oligarko sa mamamayang Pilipino. Tayo ngayon ay kasalukuyan nagbabayad ng pinakamahal na kuryente sa buong mundo. Dati talagang tayo ang pinakamahal. Pero ngayon, meron pang ibang kumakarera na sa atin. Pero isa pa rin tayo sa mga pinakamahal na kuryente sa buong mundo. Hindi din tayo lumalayo sa sitwasyon ng tubig. Sa isang pamilya, sa kuryente na lang, maski maliit na pamilya na gumagastos ng 3,000 kada buwan sa pagbabayad sa kuryente, mahigit ng 2,000 doon ay pumapasok sa bulsa ng mga oligarko bilang kita, like as profits. Magkano ba itong sinasabi natin? Napakadali po natin i-estimate, kung pwede niyo po akong sundan. Kung ang isang pamilya gumagastos ng 3,000 pesos a month sa pagbayad ng kuryente, yung pamilya yun, yung 3,000, maliit na yan. Palagay ko halos minimum na yan. At ang ating populasyon ay 100 million. Ang isang pamilya po ay 5 tao kada pamilya. Sa makatuwid, ang isang pamilya there are 20 million families. These 20 million families are paying 3,000 pesos a month electricity bills, which is something like 60 billion pesos a month na kinokolekta ng mga 8 korporasyon sa mamamayang Pilipino. Hindi lang po ang mga pamilya ang gumagastos sa kuryente. Alam po natin na ang mga pangangalakal, lahat po ng mga negosyo ay gumagastos din sa pagbayad sa kuryente. At ilan po ba ang gagastusin ng mga mangalakal sa kuryente? Napakahirap pong i-estimate yan. Kasi may mga malalaki, may mga maliliit. Pero para mas madali po natin ma-compute, sabihin na natin na yung 60 billion pesos na binabayad ng mga pamilya ay siya rin binabayad ng mga pangangalakal. Bagamat alam natin ang mga pangangalakal, minsan doble, triple pa ang binabayad sa kuryente niya. Hanggang 10 beses pa yung mga iba. Pero sabihin na natin, doble na lang. So kung yung mga pamilya, ang binabayad nila every month is 60 billion, at mga pangangalakal, the businesses are also paying 60 billion. Therefore, these 8 oligarchic families are collecting 120 billion pesos every month from us. Or in 1 year, we can estimate about 1.5 trillion pesos every year on the minimum. What is the maximum? Well, the maximum will be to average it out a little higher for both the businesses and the people. And you will reach probably about 5 trillion pesos every year. Yun pong 5 trillion pesos na binabayaran natin sa kuryente kada taon, sa amin pong pagsusuri, halos 1 trilyon o 1.5 trillion on the maximum ang operating cost ng ating power sector. Sa makatuwid, kung 5 trilyon ang kinikita nitong mga oligarko sa atin kada taon, ang gastos nila ay 1 trilyon, ang kita nila aabot sa 4 trillion pesos every year. Sa kuryente pa lang po yan. At ito pong 4 trillion, ipamamahagi ng 8 korporasyon lang yan. Kung kumikita ka ng ganyang kalaki, alam niyo po ba ang trilyon? Ang trilyon po, 12 zero. No? Ang bilyon, 9 na zero. Ang milyon, 6 na zero. Kanya yung trilyon, halos hindi na natin makwenta yan dahil karamihan sa atin hindi na nararanasan yung ganyang kalaking mga kwenta. Pero kung ganyang kalaki ang kinikita nila, average of 5 trillion pesos a year, and they are earning 4 trillion pesos for profits, how much do you think they can afford to buy up our Senate, our congressmen, and even Malacanang? Maski na magbigay silang 100 billion sa ating presidente kada taon, barya lang po yan sa kanila. Mabibigat po yan, mga higante po yan. No? Isa lang ang may mga kakayanan lumaban dyan. Isa lang sa mga Pilipino ang may kakayanan at may kapangyarihan itigil ito. Siya ang Pangulo ng Pilipinas. At kung gagawa siyang hakbang papunta dito sa paglulutas ng problema ng pamilyang Pilipino, na bawasan ang pinakamabigat na pasan na gastos ng mga pamilya. Halos mga lahati ang kinukuha ng mga kuryente at tubig sa kita ng isang pamilya. Kung hindi natin mababawasan ito ng 50 o 70%, lalala at lalala ang problema ng mamamayang Pilipino at baka magkaroon ng panahon na magkaisa yan sa panawagan katulad po ng ngayon nangyayari sa iba-ibang bansa. There are rallies, demonstrations all over the world now. Some reaching the international press and some not yet. But the people are going hungry. Maski na mapasensya po ang mga Pilipino at matagal na natin nakikita ito na ang Pilipino mapagbigay, nagbibigay ng panahon, pasensya. May hangganan din po yan. Hindi lang po natin alam kung saan, hanggang saan, yung kanilang pasensya. Pag sinabi ko pong nagdarasal ako, nagdarasal talaga ako ng ating Pangulo. Mabigyan ng tamang kaisipan. Mabigyan ng kinakailangang tapang, courage, to go after this failed system of allowing the oligarchs to take control of our country. The tendency, if the oligarchic interest prevails, is we will have a level of fascism never before experienced in the history of the Philippines. We in KDP and many other allied groups are the only ones that have been pointing to the oligarchy and this unholy alliance it has with special members of the government. And what they have been doing for the past 4 decades to our lives. The ideologues, the leftists, and the liberal economists, like the free market economists, have not brought up this idea and are afraid to touch and attack the oligarchic interests because they are beneficiaries. Ang mga kaliwa po ay nagbe-benepisyo sa mga oligarko. Marami po tayong naririnig na istorya na ang mga kaliwa ay binibigyan ng mga oligarko ng malalaking kontribusyon para wag gagalawin ang mga tore ng kuryente at ng telekomunikasyon. In other words, it is a extortion system. And if it is that which is generating billions of pesos for them, why will the leftists go against the oligarchs? Therefore, the oligarchs and the leftists and the liberal economists, the free marketers like Ben Jokno, like Joey Salceda, and like many others there, they are the ones that are benefiting from this, where the people continue to suffer. I hope that President Marcos will see this very, very clear situation, a clear conflict of interest between the suffering Filipinos and the profiteering oligarchs and their surrogates. His father, President Ferdinand Marcos Sr., did away with the oligarchs. There were no such oligarchs. He dismantled the oligarchy then, which was the Lopezes. And the government was in control of public utilities because he understood that the running of public utilities must first benefit the public and not the private interests. As soon as Cory had taken over, the move towards privatization, the move towards unholy alliances between government officials and the rich oligarchs had started. Ramos had initiated the concept of the appeal. He moved towards privatization and deregulation. He deregulated the oil industry. Corazon Aquino dismantled the OPSF, the Oil Price Stabilization Fund. Ramos deregulated the oil industry and went about privatizing many government assets. Among them was the start of the EPIRA. He initiated the electricity power reform, EPIRA law. And what was this? This move was to get the private sector to take hold of the whole power sector. And they passed a law that will get the government to agree that the government must not get into power generation, power transmission, and power distribution. Why? Because the private sector considers that as unfair business for government to step in because government must always defend the interest of the people. And that means the cost of electricity will be pushed down. And this was contrary to the oligarchic interests. If this was very clear to right-minded thinking people, this guy, President Ramos, should already be charged with treason. Because he knew very well that what he was doing was against national interest. As of now, we do not have the capacity to protect the people. Government does not have any capability because it had abdicated its role to provide public services to the private sector who are not bound to serve the interest of the people. They are not bound to keep you happy. They must first be happy with the profits. And with these profits, they share it with their partners in government. That is the true meaning of PPP, public-private partnership. Only certain officials in government can share in this business of public utilities. This system became worse with the entry of Gloria Macapagal Arroyo and then Noynoy Aquino, and then with Rodrigo Duterte. Rodrigo Duterte, for all his hoopla, for all his bravado, that he curses and papakita niya na napakatapang niya. Alam niyo po ba na sa 6 na taon, hindi niya naibaba ang halaga ng gastos sa kuryente ni 1 sentimo. Kunwari, galit na galit siya sa mga oligarko, sa kuryente at sa tubig. Pero ni 1 sentimo sa tubig at sa kuryente, hindi niya naibaba. Ang nakakalungkot na ang mga mangmang na Pilipino, hindi nila tinignan ito. At minarapat pa nilang magdusa sila sa kalagitnaan ng COVID na pandemya, pagpapahirap na walang trabaho, walang kinikita, pero walang humpay na nagpapabayad ang mga Meralco at iba pa. Kung hindi ka makabayad, pues, sabi nila, utang. Babawasan ba yan? Hindi. Hindi natin malaman kung paano nilang binilang yung utang na yan. Pero kung hindi ka magbabayad, putol. ang kuryente mo. Pag hindi ka magbabayad, putol ang tubig mo. Maraming pamilya sa atin, hindi na lang sila kakain. Huwag lang maputulan ng kuryente. Yan po ang nangyayari sa atin. Huwag natin sanang tatalikuran ang tunay na halaga nitong binibigyan natin pansin. At sana kayong mga malalapit sa ating Pangulo, pakibulong na lang po ninyo. Nasabihin nyo, maraming nagdurusang Pilipino dito sa Epira Law. Maski kung paano niyang gagawin, gumawa na siya ng hakbang. Kung hindi, baka hindi natin mapigilan ang galit po ng mga mamayang Pilipino. Andito na pala si Itos. Itos, nandiyan ka na ba? O, bumati ka muna, Itos.
Yeah. Hello sa lahat ng tagapakinig ng Ating Katipunan. Live na po tayo ulit because tomorrow is the first SONA of our new President Marcos. Yun lang po. So hi to everybody. Nakikinig po kami sa komento and statement ng ating chairman na si Butch Valdes. Gusto ko lang sana comment, chairman, if
yes,
that's okay.
Yeah,
so tomorrow po is the SONA. Nakita po natin since umupo na tong si Presidente Marcos, slowly po nakikita natin yung formation ng kanyang kabinete. Again, nag-express kami po ng disappointment with his economic team. Yet, there is some hope because he decided to take over Department of Agriculture. He decided to assign that task to himself, meaning he will give importance to the Department of Agriculture. Ang issue po niyan, at this critical junction again in our history, which includes yung presidency ni Duterte, and in the future, this part of our current history po, hindi na sapat yung mediocre moves po. Ang nakikita po natin, kailangan drastic na yung ating galaw. Because nga, as sabi po ni Chairman, marami na pong nagugutom. Marami na talagang nagugutom at nawawala ng pag-asa. You can only suppress people for so long before you will have to impose authoritarian rule. And that is the danger. Sabi nga ni Chairman, we are being pushed because there is no solution economically and otherwise. Itinutulak na po tayo sa isang sitwasyon na he will be forced. If not him, maybe the next president will be forced to declare martial law and impose authoritarian measures to control the population na hindi naman masama, pero gutom. So we are reaching that critical stage again very quickly. What I would like to see, and syempre, lahat ng kaibigan natin, when you ask about anong palagay nila kay Bongbong Marcos, ang bagong presidente and his cabinet team and all of that, sinasabi po nila they are hoping and they are giving him the best support. Sana po maganda yung gagawin niya. as president. What we'd like to see is hindi po yung flowery words and motherhood statements. Kasi po alam natin, magaling po mag-speech itong si Marcos, President Marcos, just like his father, Ferdinand. Magaling po yung speech niya. His ability to read and craft speech to inspire the nation. Nandun na po tayo. Kaya lang po, we want to see more concrete actions and state of a direction that he intends to take this country. And what is needed po, and marami na po tayong sinasabi na what is needed is all agencies of government be united in that direction. Hindi po independent yung economic team niya. They have to be united with ang gusto niya sa agriculture. The finance office, the Secretary of Finance has to be on board with his plan to be self-sufficient in agriculture. The Energy Department has to support that to push the increase in production, and so forth and so on. And the Department of Education under Vice President Duterte has to support that with curriculum and programs that will also for example, be geared towards increasing production, agricultural production po natin. All this has to be one goal or one direction po. Hindi po pwedeng kanya-kanya. So that's what we are hoping President Marcos will be announcing tomorrow para po alam ng taong bayan where he intends to take the country. What is his real direction? And with that, I think pag nag-announce po yung si Bongbong, Presidente Bongbong, that this is the direction I need to take the country, all offices under me will be geared towards this direction. Increase food production for self-sufficiency at the end of 4 years, maybe. And the Department of Energy will support the revitalization of our nuclear energy program with the support of the DOST. And the Department of Trade and Industry will support that corollary effort. With attracting businesses, that will grow the economy properly. Hindi po speculation, not growing the casinos, not growing just the real estate sector for speculation, but yung real economy po natin, which is energy, which is food production, which is infrastructure, and everything else. Everything that's needed for yung survival po ng taong bayan. Kasi kaya naman natin. And nakikita ko naman na si Presidente Marcos knows that we can do it. Or else hindi niya po i-take on yung Department of Agriculture. Hindi niya po anuhin. So what we'd like to see tomorrow, hindi po natin alam kung ano talaga ang sasabihin niya bukas, but what we'd like to see is that a return to many of the policies, frankly, of his father. That the Philippines will now go a different direction. That the Philippines will now go back to policies that work and do not favor speculative investment, do not favor the oligarchical interests, which are taking control of all our vital infrastructure. That's what we want to see from a real president para tuloy-tuloy na ang pag-unlad. And especially po ngayon, yung sitwasyon sa buong mundo, ang dami po nangyayari sa buong mundo, sabi nga ni Chairman kanina, hindi lumalabas sa ating news. Hindi lumalabas sa ABS-CBN, sa TV5, sa GMA7, sa Inquirer. Hindi nila pinapalibas. Pero halos lahat ng bansa sa buong mundo may protesta dahil sa economic conditions, dahil sa inflation. Ang nagproprotesta po, mga farmers, mga laborers, mga workers, steel workers, lahat sa iba't ibang bansa, kahit sa mayaman na bansa. Protesta sila ng protesta. Kaya tumataas yung bilihin. Kasi marami po dyan nagugulo po yung supply chain. Kasi ayaw na mag-produce ng mga farmers, for example, dito sa Netherlands. Nagpro-protesta sila kasi gusto ng gobyerno nila babaan yung mga production nila. Gusto nila climate change. Dahil sa climate change daw, kailangan ibaba yung production nila. Ito mga farmer, ito mga magsasaka sa Netherlands, ayaw. Hindi sila magpapatalo dyan. Kasi napaka-productive po nila. So ang ginawa nila, hinarang nila yung isang major highway. Isipin nyo, from North EDSA to Magallanes, hinarang po nila yon. Walang nakadaan na kotse sa protesta. So marami po nangyari all over the world. South America, marami nangyari. Nakita po natin na sa Sri Lanka, nag-asa yung mga tao at yung presidente nila umalis. Dahil gutom ang mga tao, masama na yung economic conditions, masama na yung ginagawa nilang, ito na po yung, sa palagay ko po, this is the transition from the globalist system back to a sovereign national system for each country. Kaya po nangyayari ito. Pero it's happening all over the world. And I think President Bongbong Marcos should see this and should get a clue. Yung instinct po niya, sa palagay ko po, tama naman. Medyo ano siya, nakikita niya kung anong nangyari. Siyempre, yung tatay niya, nakikinig siya sa tatay niya dati. So nakikita po niya mga nangyayari. Lumalabas sa mga statement niya. So I hope, ang gusto ko makita bukas is that he's able to define the direction and the marching orders that he will give this country moving forward. Kasi po, we cannot be floating or we cannot be in the middle without any major decision soon. Kasi po, yun na nga, gutom na yung mga tao. Gutom na medyo bagsak talaga yung ekonomiya natin. And he has to make some tough decisions immediately. Yun lang po, Chairman. I wanted to give my thoughts lang. And then maybe we can react.
Thank you for your comments, Itos. And totoo naman yung mga lahat ng ating mga karaingan ay dapat sana bigyan ng pansin ng ating Pangulo. I just wanted to mention also the idea of crisis management. Ang ginagawa po sa akin palagay ni President Marcos ay gagawa ng sitwasyon para malinis niya itong sitwasyon sa agrikultura. Kasi daw laganap daw ang korupsyon dyan. No? Kasi daw yung mga importers ng mga iba-ibang agricultural products ay nakapagkontsaba sa mga opisyal ng agriculture para ang kumikita lang yung mga nag-aangkat nito at naproproblema ang mga magsasaka natin. Okay, that's good. You can have to change that. But the need for food, no, is immediate. Hindi po natin pwede sabihin sa ating mga mamamayan na aayusin ko at lilinisin ko yung agriculture so that by next year, maganda na ang ating ani at marami na tayong makakain. Ang nangangailangan po ng pagkain ay ngayon, kahapon, at sa darating na mga araw. No? the need is critical. No? This is hunger and starvation that we are going to be facing very soon. No? The cost of fertilizer is shooting up, the cost of fuel is shooting up. Everything that has to do with higher food prices is now making a play. That is the crisis. So what are the first and immediate steps that the government will take? Yung ginagawa niya, nasasabihin niya, ayusin niya, lilinisin niya, siya na ang mag-ano ng agriculture. I would think those are the steps that need to be taken. But at best, it will have medium-term results. I would like to know what are the steps that he will be taking so that there will be an immediate impact on the lives of the Filipino people. The reason I say this is because kung meron kang problema, maski na hindi mo na pag-aralan kung paano lulutasin itong problemang ito, dapat meron tayong kakayanan gumawa ng paraan para maremedyohan agad yung problema natin. Ang problema ngayon ng ating bansa, like I said earlier, is unprecedented at hindi pa natin naranasan sa ating kasaysayan at any time. And we know it's a very serious problem. It's a very serious hunger problem, jobs problem. Now, what is the immediate step to address that? Ako po'y meron na pag-isipan na kasi ang tanong, kung ikaw si Presidente Marcos, anong gagawin mo kung ganito ang problema mo? Di kunwari, ikaw ang may kakayanan. Ako po, una ko pong sasabihin, kakausapin ko si Secretary of Education, Sara Duterte. At sasabihin ko sa kanya, kakailanganin natin yung 60,000 eskwela at mga 25 million students to go into food production. That every school must have a backyard production of food. And every student must devote 1 hour of his schooling every day into the production of food. Every school can determine what kind of food it wants to grow or what combination of food. They can grow pigs, they can grow goats, they can grow pechay, they can raise corn, and so on and so forth, or hito, or tilapia, or whatever it is. But they must grow something. I would think that getting 25 million young people to move into food production will make an impact on the source of food available to the people. And the first beneficiaries of the public schools that are all going into this will be the students' families themselves. And if there are extra production, of course, it will find itself in the markets. But this is one way of getting the agricultural production moving. The Department of Agriculture and Department of Science and Technology will provide the necessary technical know-how, and even if certain segments of the Department of Public Schools and Highways might provide a little or irrigation system like the construction of deep wells and so on and so forth. And the private sector through the Rotary clubs and Lions might also provide provide advice to the different schools on the management of their farms. This is getting the whole country into a mode of agricultural production. I surmise that if that starts today, the impact of this, especially on vegetables that can grow very fast, the impact of this will be felt within a matter of months. Maybe 3 to 6 months, you will have felt the increase in production of available agricultural crops. That is one. Second, during the presidency of his father, President Marcos Sr., he came up with a decree that said that 25% of loanable funds of all commercial banks must be available for agricultural projects given on concessional terms. Now, before the benefits of it could be realized, Corazon Aquino had taken over, and her economists, including Ben Jokno, were among those that found a way to circumvent that law forcing commercial banks to make 25% of their loanable funds to the agricultural sector. The very same finance secretary he has now took steps to stop that and found a way for commercial banks to get away from that by saying that they only have to pay 1% penalty so that those funds can be released for other speculative projects. Sino nawalan dito? Ang ating farmers. Pag nawalan ng kapasidad ang farmers natin for available financing, sino mawawalan dito? Tayo din. Kasi bababa ang production, tapos pipilitin tayo mag-angkat, mag-import. Katulad po ng nangyayari ngayon. Yan po ang importante natin dapat makita. Isa pang gusto ko sanang marinig sa ating Pangulo, na lahat ng mga bangko na nag-foreclose ng agricultural land, hawak nila itong mga lupa na nakatiwangwa na naremate nila sa mga naghihirap na magsasaka. Kinakailangan atasan niya ang mga bangko na ma-convert itong mga lupa into agricultural projects within 1 year. dapat in a span of 1 year, meron na pong taniman dyan, meron na pong agricultural project dyan. Hindi po subdivision, agricultural projects. At kung hindi magagawa ng commercial banks, government is given the authority to confiscate these lands and distribute for productive use. Pang-apat po, ang mga lupain po ng gobyerno na alienable and disposable na agricultural lands must be available both to individuals, groups, cooperatives, and corporations on a long-term leasehold basis. Ibigay po sa ating mga mamamayan, sa mga korporasyon, na hahawakan nila na matagalan itong lupang ito. On the condition na pag nahawakan nila, agad-agad tatamnan nila o mag-uumpisa silang proyekto na gagawa ng pagkain. Agad-agad. Kung hindi, makukumpiska ulit ang binigay sa kanilang lupa ng gobyerno. Long-term leasehold arrangements. Hahawakan nila, halos libre yung lupa, maliit na ibibigay konti sa gobyerno, pero kailangan papasukan nila ng agricultural projects. The financing should be available to them. Technical assistance from agriculture must be available to them. Lahat po ng alienable and disposable land. Kasama na rin dyan yung mga lupang pag-aari ng ating mga military armed forces of the military. Napakalaki po niyan, mga hektarya. Gagawin po natin yan na ang military itself must embark on agricultural projects to benefit initially, of course, the military families themselves. And then after, this will find itself in the markets. Ito po yung mga immediate needs that I would like to hear from the President to make an announcement. Because very clearly, this move is a move towards addressing the critical need for food. At diyan po tayo dapat nakatutok. Now, if you're going to go into agricultural projects, it is incumbent upon the government to make sure that all your projects, wherever they are, be it in mga public schools or in other arable areas or in leasehold arrangements, whatever it is, it is incumbent of the government to see to it that they will have ample irrigation. Immediately, government must take hold or work with those that are in control of dams. The dams, yung mga imbakan ng tubig sa mga malalaking ilog natin, nabuhat doon sa artificial lakes na nangyayaring imbakan ng tubig. Immediately, the Department of Highways and Public Works must construct in emergency mode canals, tributaries, para dumaloy ang tubig doon sa mga malalayong lugar na hindi inaabutan ng may irrigation ngayon. Importante po na yung mga imbakan ng tubig na yan ay magagamit ng ating mga magsasaka. Ang nangyari, dahil na-privatize ni Ramos, ni Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, at ni Noynoy Aquino, ang mga dams, yung water management natin, na natigil sa paggawa ng kuryente na isinasakay nila sa grid. Pero hindi gumagawa ng tributaries tsaka canals ang gobyerno para magamit yung tubig pang irigasyon. Bakit? Ayaw ng mga oligarko. Kasi sabi ng oligarko, kailangan bayaran nyo kami dyan. Babayaran natin itong mga oligarko sa tubig na nanggagaling sa bundok na hindi naman nila ginawa. Ang ginawa nila, yung dam, o binili nila yung dam. Pero yung mga tao natin sa gobyerno, mga bobo at nalalagyan at hindi na sila aangal sa mga oligarko. Yan po ang mga ilan sa gusto ko sanang mapakinggan na i-anunsyo ng ating Pangulo dito sa krisis na hinaharap ng ating bansa. Palagay ko, magkakaroon ng very positive reaction on the part of the people. And the people will be inspired to participate in a national movement for food production. And that is what he must call for. Ito yung tinatawag nating unity. Magsama-sama tayo na ang layunin natin, pataasin natin ang produksyon ng ating agriculture to double, triple, or even quadruple our food production. We cannot go into these levels without water management and without energy. It is our hope that true to his initial campaign statements, he will move to restart the Bataan nuclear power plant, which, according to Rosatom, the Russian engineers, and KEPCO, the Korean engineers, if started, can be operational within 12 to 18 months. The earlier we start this, the earlier we will have solved the critical situation on energy and fuel. And to wait for 12 to 18 months is definitely worth our efforts because of the benefits we will be deriving from it. Not just the additional power that we can generate. There are corollary projects that will spin out of that. Among them are desalination plants to generate water from the sea after desalinating, which means making fresh water available for agriculture as well. All of this can be done within the short 6-year span of Bongbong's government administration. This is what we need to help and hear from him. Let us not emphasize anymore the concept of unity, which seems to be uninspiring, to say the least. Of course, we are unified as Filipinos. Of course, eventually, when we see the difficulties we are facing, politics will be playing a lesser and lesser role. But what is needed right now is not a compromising president. What is needed right now is a leader who brings his people to the promised land. That is what we need. Hindi ba itos?
Right. I think in that sense, Chairman, the son should take a page from his father's book and really take on that responsibility as part of our continuing effort as a nation to develop. He is now the current leader that this country has given its faith, has given its hopes, and has given its desires to be fulfilled as a nation, to help this country move forward. So he should take that on, and he shouldn't shrink from that and make the tough decisions necessary to be pushed forward. I have a question, Chairman, with regards to what would you like to see? What would you like to see given his finance team is part of the same crowd, the same kind of thinking that we've seen since '86. Actually, it's the same school of thought in economics and liberal capitalism and financial and monetary philosophy. How do you think he will be able to do the right thing with his economic team being from that school of thought?
Well, he must realize that the people that he deals with are what you call monetarists. From the time of Cory up to now, these economists manage an economy by manipulating interest rates. They will bring it down to bring down bring up interest rates to curtail inflation, and then bring it down so that more money is available to the people, no? Supposedly for speculative investments. But by doing so, there has not been any move towards using the resources to go into production. This is where monetarism differs from the physical economists. What I would like to see is a reversal of this concept of monetarism. How can this happen? Well, it all depends on the leader of the country. If, as I had suggested, we take over the public utilities from the oligarchs, government takes over the public utilities and brings down the cost of power and water to a level much more conducive for investments, and ties these oligarchs to go into beneficial industries like steel manufacturing, fertilizer manufacturing, pharmaceutical manufacturing, smelting plants, and all other corollary types of production. And give them the kind of support that they will need for the next so many years in order for them to generate profits that will probably be the same or even more than what they're getting now from the public utilities. If you can do that, then you would have converted us to getting our economy into the productive mode. Because once you've got this and you transfer the oligarchs into production of these areas, the cost of power, which is the most important, among the most important considerations of investors, be that foreign or local, we'll take a second look at starting businesses here, because they will see that the government is serious about making affordable power giving affordable to the people and to the businesses. Now, if that happens, and you've got these industries fully supported by government, there will be a new sector generated, which is a manufacturing sector that will take over the employment needs of our people. And government by this time can start lessening the number of Filipinos that we want to export as housemaids or other things in turbulent areas of the world. Because this is where their productivity is needed. That way, we would have converted ourselves from a monetary system where economy is managed by interest rates, putting value on an idiot, which we call money. The value of money is only seen when it is in relation to something tangible. That's something that it had produced. But money per se no, is an idiot by itself without the tangible production. It does not mean anything. And this is the two different concepts of monetarism versus physical economy. I would rather, of course, especially now in this time, we must look into the benefits of developing a physical economy. And in so doing, also move towards a system which will be complementing or parallel to different countries in the world that are moving towards that direction. Okay ba yan, Tas?
Yes. Siyempre, of course. He has to find a way to change the system without necessarily drastic recall of all his appointees sa central bank,
He's the president, no?
Right.
And he determines the economic direction and the steps to take. No?
Correct.
If he cannot determine the steps to take, no, then he's not the president. No?
Correct.
If Ben Jokno will overpower him, no, and tells him, no, that's not the way, we will not do that, then fire Jokno. No? No? Because this means the lives not of President Marcos alone. No? It means the lives of 100 million Filipinos.
Correct.
And we are at that state.
I have another question before we start reading the comments. How do you propose, as a former auditor, managing director of the second largest accounting firm in the country,
which bears your name?
Yeah, which bears my name. Yes, my grandfather. How would you propose Marcos deal with the debt service, the debt burden that we have now? Because obviously the past 2 years, medyo we've sunk very low. Given what is happening now around the world in terms of the financial system, how do you think the next 6 years, how would he handle the debt?
Well, first of all, if I were here, I would demand from these financial managers and even central banks that they give me an actual list and terms and conditions of all of the loans of our country. Debt, there are different kinds of debt. Pwede kang umutang para mabigyan mo ng sweldo yung tao mo. Pwede ka ding umutang para makakonstruct ka ng nuclear power plant. Pwede kang umutang para magpadami ka ng mga superficial projects para meron kang yung parang binibigay mo sa tao, yung kaparad ng DSWD, magbibigay ka ng mga monthly subsidies. Kaya pwede kang umutang para doon. No? O kaya pwede ka rin umutang para pumasok ka sa speculative investment. Tataya ka at kuminsan ginagawa palagay ko nitong mga ito. So once you figure out what the loans are, okay, what might that be? Well, as you can see recently, in the last 2 years, we are made to believe that we have had to make emergency loans. Emergency loans which What does that mean? Are these long-term? Are these... Ano ba ang nature ng emergency loans? We have to look into the terms and conditions of this. Ano ba ang interest niyan? Kailan ba kailangan mabayad yan? At bakit natin hiniram? Bakit tayo na pwesang humiram dyan? Sino ba ang nakinabang? Yung bang mga oligarko na nag-advance para ma-import yung mga PCRs tsaka mga vaccination, tapos humiram tayo sa bangko, foreign bank, para mabayaran mo yung oligarko? Yung ba ang nangyari? We have to find out these details because these are hundreds of billions of pesos that have been released for us over the last 2.5 years. The second is, what are the loans that are now medium term or short term that have been borrowed for budgetary support? What does that mean? Kung minsan may deficit tayo sa budget natin, ibig sabihin, yung budget natin, gumawa tayong budget, pero yung kikitain natin is not enough to come up with that budget. If you have a 5 trillion peso budget, but your income generation is only 4 trillion pesos, there is a budget deficit, which means that you have to borrow that difference. Now, that is a no-no, but our fiscal managers, like Ben Jokno, Sani Dominguez, and all of them, have been doing this. And if I was somebody that understands that, I know I will fire them right away. But no, because the presidents don't understand this, they let it. Because Mr. President, kailangan natin gawin ito. Ganyan ang nangyayari. Iyan budget deficit, hanapin natin at pwede nating pakiusapan ang mga nagpautang sa atin. Natay mo na, huwag niyo muna kaming pilitin bayaran ito. Yung isa, yung short-term tapos onerous interest payments, tsaka meron mga hidden dyan sa mga PCRs na yan. We can negotiate and say, wait. This is onerous. This is immoral. And we cannot pay this right away. We will pay this at another time. The other thing, if we borrow, our borrowings on a government-to-government basis, and we borrowed presumably for infrastructure, that is okay. Kasi ang infrastructure is not, it's an investment. Kumukuha ka ng, umuhiram ka parang magtayo ka ng negosyo. Kanya yung infrastructure na yun, pag natapos mo na, magkakaroon siya ng generation para mabayaran yung utang na yun. Ngayon, yung mga utang natin sa PCR, tsaka utang natin sa budgetary support, wala tayong pambayad. In other words, wala kang match na something productive na pwede mong i-match dun sa inutang mo. No? So infrastructure loans are good per se, but we still have to scrutinize them. Therefore, kung etong sinasabi natin, 11, magkano ba yan? 11 trillion ba yan? Yung utang natin?
Yeah.
Yan, utang na yan. Himayin natin. Tapos, kausapin natin yung mga banks on a specialized basis. Not as a whole, no? But looking at this different, what we will pay later, and what we will not pay, no? Based on the conditionalities of those loans. Yun ang dapat natin gawin. Meron pang isang napakadelikado. Etong mga sila Benjok, no, ang hihilig nila, papasok daw sa infrastructure loans. Pero, hihiram sila sa commercial banks. Bakit? Maski na mahal ang commercial banks. Mahal ang commercial banks magpahiram. Tapos, hindi ka pa long term. No? Pero bakit magpapahiram ang commercial banks sa atin ng infrastructure? Dahil ang humihiram, yung mga oligarko. The oligarchs borrow money from the commercial banks. And then Benjok sees to it that government will guarantee those loans. In other words, pag hindi mabayaran ng oligarko yung utang, ang babayad niyan, gobyerno. Bakit pinasukan ni Jok na yan? Kayo na po bahala. Napakadali pong makita kung ano-ano pinagkikitaan ng mga tao ngayon sa gobyerno. So we have to scrutinize all of this in order to just say, it is not right for us to say, declare a moratorium on debt. No, I don't see a need for that. But we can pick out certain types of debt that we can say was onerous or corrupt. Baka may mga corrupt na pumasok dyan. Alam niyo po ba mayroon corruption sa pagbayad sa utang? Nagbabayad tayong about $12 billion a year. Sa palagay niyo ba, yung mga bangkong tatanggap ng $12 billion a year sa pagbayad ng utang natin? Sa palagay niyo ba, hindi sila magbibigay ng komisyon sa mga kinauukulan para ipagpatuloy ang pagbayad sa utang? It's time to get out of this naivety. It's time to look at reality. The monster that we fight is big. The oligarchic monsters are big. And bigger still are the oligarchic monsters outside the Philippines. But if a president has the intellectual competence and the moral courage to do what is right for his people, he will have 100 million people totally behind him. Totally. Well, diyan magkakaroon ng unity. But he's got to fight for us. And all the opposition, all those that voted for him, 31 million, all of us must feel that he is fighting for us. then we will be behind it. Yun yan, Itas.
Okay, so with that, we have about 15 minutes ago. So magbabasa na po tayo ng ating mga komento. So again po, in the interest of free speech, we will read the comments as is, but those comments do not necessarily reflect that of the host or this program. Sige, Ver, i-post na natin yung mga comments so we can read it. Tayin lang natin si Ver. Naayos. Okay. Cesar Soberano, good evening, Sir Butch. Mabuhay ang KDP. Rodrigo Santiago, watching from Bicol. Matthew Katzenberger, magandang gabi po. Prof. Butch Valdes, watching from Austria. Alfredo Villaflor, good evening from Connecticut. Pedro Redina, present. Rallies in the world due to food crisis promoted by Green New Deal. Not using nitrogen fertilizer. Sugar plantation became Ayala Nuvali, Greenfield, Imol, etc. Going into physical economy will result the pursuit of happiness for the people and not for greedy oligarchs to implement Glass-Steagall and install our one true national bank managed by government. Isa pa yan, national banking as opposed to commercial banking. China is using the Glass-Steagall scheme in banking, commercial bank infrastructure and agricultural banks. China is using the Glass-Steagall scheme in banking. The best option is to join the BRICS to eliminate the oligarchs in public utilities. We don't need money of oligarchs. In a way, corruption can be lessened. Correct. Carlo Iway, good evening. Redmi, monopoly equals to overall poverty of a country. Bawat bansa magkaroon ng oligarchs, but some countries are worse. Ayala Group, Lopez Group, Pangilinan PLD, who's the other one? Open the economy to foreign investors and companies, such as transport, water supply, electricity, infrastructure, telecommunications. Ayan. Would you like to comment on his comment? Sabi niya, meron na tayong local oligarchs, pero to solve that, we should open to foreign investors. In other words, the constitution must be changed to allow 100% foreign ownership, and that will solve our problem with the oligarchs.
That is a very sad kind of appreciation of the situation. Alam mo, foreign investors do not have money. The foreign investors borrow what they are going to bring here. And they borrow sometimes not just from foreign banks, but from local banks, and then they call it foreign investment. This is an old trick of saying that we should open up to these guys. No, you are surrendering your sovereignty. Not only that, we have the capability to generate our own if we know how to manage the physical economy. This thing about papasukin nyo yung mga, as if though they were gods. God bless, they will exploit you and continue to exploit you. And all of those government officials who know this, yan mga Joey Salceda, no? Yan mga Ben Jokno, yan mga yan, they are treasonous for allowing this because they will surrender our patrimony to foreign investors. Yung ating kinabukasan ang ibinibigay nila dito. Para kikita sila dahil wala silang pakialam sa mga darating na henerasyon. Huwag kayong papasok dyan na sasabihin, buksan natin para mas marami pang pumasok na foreign investors. that is bullshit, no? And it is a suicide type of situation. Pag pinapasok mo lahat yan, bakit ka pa Pilipino? Huwag ka nang maging Pilipino.
Okay, there. Sweet but psycho, halos araw-araw nagtataas ng presyo ng bilihin tulad ng asukal at itlog. Sana mapigilan to ng bahagya. Pero New World Order si BBM. Okay. Connie Gomez Valdes, thumbs up. Rogelio Bolaños, good evening, Sir Butch, mga katipon KDP. Thinking Pinay. Alberto Fermin, gandang gabi po, Sir Butch. Mababalik po ba sa Pinas ang Saba? Bigyan niyo po ng paliwanag sana. Okay.
Alam nyo, sana. Kasi naghatol na yung isang French bank ba yun?
Court in Luxembourg.
Court in Luxembourg nagdesisyon na sinasabi na may utang ang Malaysia dito sa mga pamilya na sa Sulu ng $15 billion. Okay. Now, whether or not this thing can be affected or whatever, I think the government should take notice. No? Because our claim to Sabah is much more justified with full documentation, no, to be ours. Now, much more justified, like I said, than the scrimmage that we continue to insist playing games with China and the US, making the US use us as their surrogate against China. Pero dito, na talagang sa atin, tingnan nyo, hindi tayo tinutulungan ng mga kano. Bakit? Kasi walang kinalaman yan sa China. Isipin nyo mabuti yan. At paalala natin kay Presidente Marcos na ang tatay niya gumawa ng hakbang para kunin yan Sabah dahil sa atin yan. Hindi natin nakuha dahil yung sikretong pagpaplano ibinisto ni Ninoy Aquino. Dahil dito, namatay yung mga sundalo natin na nakapasok na sa Sabah. Yan ang mga ginagawang yan si Ninoy. Malaking traitor na tao yan. Ngayon, namatay na nga si Ninoy, namatay na si Presidente Marcos. Pero yung ating claim sa Sabah, dapat hindi mamamatay. Yan sila Cory, sila Gloria, at si Ramos. No? Nakahanda na sila nung ibigay at wag na tayong mag-claim sa Sabah. Pero sana ang ating Pangulo, buhayin niya ito. Kung hindi natin makukuha yung Sabah, at the very least, i-negotiate natin sa Malaysia na mag-share tayo sa mga beneficial aspects of the area. Huwag niya naman tayong i-zero. No? Pero dahil talagang atin yan. Kanya, pwede naman yan madaan sa usapan. Hindi kailangan sa gera.
Okay. Thinking Pinay, if you have some solution, then why don't you suggest it directly to the president instead of talking in social media. It may help. Well, sana, hopefully we do, and we have tried, and we have passed on all of our ideas. Hopefully he listens. Jerry Chua, good evening everyone. Tama po kayo, Sir Butch. Yan ang youth empowerment, another green revolution. Mag-propagate ng seedlings sana mga students. Ang UPLB mag-teach 1 month lang to grow ng vegetables. Correct. And sabi nga ni Chairman, yung idea niya, 25 million students. Imagine po nyo, nagfa-farming. That is a revolution in agriculture production. And in just how many in 1 year? We would have produced so much. Simple. And yung knowledge po ng education ng agriculture. Ang laking magandang programa po yan. John Cyril Oniato, good evening Sir Butch, Itos at mga nandito sa KDP. Oo, tama ka dyan Sir Butch. Dapat tuunan ng pansin ito sa BBM. At ang mga kawawang magsasaka at atin kasi nagmamahal ang ating food supplies. I don't want to say this, pero yan ang hirap kay President Bongbong dahil umaasa siya sa taga-New World Order na sa Build Back Better with B as number 6. Kuno na hindi alam, ginagago lang siya ng mga kabal. Worse, yung ina-appoint niya, puro mga oligarko na mukhang pera. Hoy, mga Marcos loyalists na panatikong sheeples. Panawagan niyo naman kay PBBM na isulong niya ang Article 12 at itigil niya ang pagsulong ng experimental turok at booster na turok. Tapos try niyo ipanawagan sa nabuhayin niya ang BNPP, Bataan Nuclear Power Plant, para at least nakakatulong kayo kaysa sa mag-akusa kayo na puro dilawan lang sa tingin niyo ang mga nag-disagree. Sa wrong move ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos. Mga sir, salamat sa topic niyo ngayong gabi. God bless sa inyo po. BBM Pilipinas, Japan 2022, Team Marcos pa rin, Marcos Avengers. 13 trillion ang iniwan itong ni Digong. Lahat ng problema na mana ni PBBM. Yes, this is the debt. That's why we asked how it can be solved. So kanina po na napag-usapan na ni Chairman how he would approach it. And I think Bongbong should listen to him and not to Diokno and Medalla, etc. Freddy Oradina, those oligarchs are the most of the time the fifth column in a country. Claim to Saba via Manila Accord 1963. Ferdinand Marcos employed the Jabida divulged by Ninoy. Mr. Exit, the Lopezes are not local oligarchs but definitely foreign. Agree. Okay, sino pa? Meron pa ba? Where? We have 2 minutes left. Rose Tamondo, nakabukas po ng isipan ng lahat na pinag-uusapan niyo po. Please tuloy niyo lang po. God bless po. Thank you. Kung di siya traidor, ipinapatayin niya pa siya ng mga hindi iba sa kanya. I'm talking about Pinoy. Okay, that's all the comments we have for tonight. Go ahead, Chairman.
Okay, sa ngalan po ng ating mga katipon dito sa ating katipunan at ang magagaling na staff ng DZXL Radio Mo Nationwide. Kami po ay pansamantalang nagpapaalam at nagpapasalamat sa sinamahan nyo kami ngayon ng Ora de Peligro ng ating bayan at ng buong mundo dito po sa ating katipunan. Hanggang linggo po muli, 7 to 9 p.m. Magkita-kita po tayo.